5, soon to be 4 platforms and one new one. Uh, we'll be on the new Thread platform on Facebook. As soon as that gets up and running, I will keep you posted. But in the meantime, for the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to work on this article that I'm writing for another platform. It's about conquering your fear of first impressions. So, when last we left this story, we're trying to figure out why people feel uncomfortable about first impressions. And I used myself as an example because I walk with crutches. And so part of fear of first impressions is insecurity. And although I'm not insecure about walking on crutches, I've been doing it for many decades, basically since I was able to walk, or actually since I was able to get out of a wheelchair and walk, because I was in one for 20 years. Um, I don't feel insecure about it. But people have preconceived notions, preconceived ideas when they meet me because what they see is a handicapped person walking on crutches. So, what I need to do before I even open my mouth is blow up those preconceived notions. So, as I wrote, and this is a first draft, so this is a work in progress, this will be honed as time goes on. What I did was I actually do what I call a preemptive strike. And the first thing I do is I'm right-handed, so I put my right crutch into my left hand while I'm standing there and extend my arm and shake hands. That shows them that I may be handicapped, but I'm not totally incapable. For some reason, it's after holiday. I'm incapable of. Shows them I'm not. Let's try that again. I'm incapable of talking, is what it is. No, let's try that again. What it shows them is I'm not incapable of being exactly the way they are. Yes, there's some things I can't do. I can't run the 4 minute mile, but how many people can? Um, so, what you need to do is put people at ease. And this writing 101 that I do here is a lot of writing, but I'm also going to try to teach you about human behavior a little. It's something I know fairly well. I spent most of my adult writing career as a magazine feature writer, specializing in celebrity profiles. And, you sit down with somebody and you're supposed to get their life history in a few hours, and you're supposed to get them to open up and talk to you and be honest and tell you things that they may not have told other people. And so what I do is read them. I'm very good at reading people. I know when I did an interview, I didn't use a pad. I did weeks of research, and I basically had all their information in my head. I probably knew more about them than they thought I knew And I knew their answers before they told me, but my job was to get them to give me their answers in their way. And so I would just sit there and have a conversation with them. I'd have a little tiny, in those days, a micro cassette tape recorder that sat there, and they would forget about that in the first few minutes. And we would just sit there and talk for an hour or so or more. And when you're just having a conversation with people, you have to be able to control the conversation, especially when it's not a casual conversation. It may seem that way to them, but it's a business conversation. It was something that I was actually getting paid for. I was getting paid to talk to people and then write it down. Now, what I could get them to say was what they were actually paying me for. And I wasn't looking for some smoking gun that would destroy their career. I was looking for them to be real. Because celebrities especially have a facade they put up when they know they're speaking with somebody of the press or somebody in the media, because they want to come across as a certain person. Their publicists want them to come across as a certain person. Their agents and managers want them to come across as a certain person. And my job was to get beyond that and find out the real person, not the person everybody wanted me to know. So, as I said, I had all this information in my head, and I would talk to them and we'd have a conversation. And they would open up. And as I said, I wasn't looking for a hatchet job, but they would tell me their feelings, and they would basically let their guard down. I didn't take advantage of that. I just wanted them to relax and show me the real them. For instance, and I got an itchy nose. I think it comes this summer in Las Vegas. But anyway, um, I had an interview once with a major star on a major TV show. And I had done all this research. I knew all about her. I knew the direction I wanted the article to go to get a well rounded view of that person, which was my job. And literally, just as I'm leaving the magazine's office, the editor says to me, "Oh, and by the way, I want you to ask her about the layout she did in Playboy 10 years ago." And I looked at him and said, "You're kidding, right?" He said, "No, we need to know that. I want you to ask her that." Well, here's the thing, it's almost impossible to slip something like that into a casual conversation. But I was good at what I did. And after about 30 minutes or so of talking to her, I got around to asking her that. And she immediately said, "I don't want to talk about it." 10 minutes later, she was not only talking about it, but she told me more than I ever wanted to know. Um, so when I say that I understand people, it's not just something that happened, it's something that I worked on, that I've been trained about, and I've kind of honed my craft. So, getting back to the article, after that long little sidebar there, um, I understand the fear of first impressions. I've been there. Everybody in the world has been there. But the trick of it is to be yourself. And if you don't think yourself is a good enough person to be, think again. Because trouble is, and that's what I'm trying to get across in this article I'm writing, you can be someone else. You can go on a first date and you can be, oh, I don't know. In my day, it was George Clooney. I don't know who it is now, but you can be George Clooney. You could be suave, and you could be debonair, and you could be funny, and you could be all that. But if it isn't you, that's going to break down, and so will the relationship in very short order. So when you meet someone for the first time, yes, you want to be someone that they understand, someone they want to be with, someone they like, but you still have to be you. Because if you're not, you won't have a relationship in very short order. So, what does that mean? Well, I guess what we could say here is that, and let's add this into the article, and keep in mind this is a draft. Um, just letting, okay, here we go. Okay, you know, when computers don't listen to you, obviously it did for the okay. So, what will we add in here? Neither you or the other person will get to know you because it's a very unrealistic behavior. And keep in mind, I'm just getting my thoughts down here. I will hone this article up later, but my thoughts tell me just what I just told you, which is so you want to be yourself, period. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. You want to be yourself. And we're going to add in just what I was telling you. Because if you're not yourself, comma, your relationship with that person will not last past the first impression. Period. It doesn't matter whether that relationship is a business relationship or a personal relationship, comma, it will be doomed from the start. Period. So what have I done here? I've This is obviously an informal article. This is not a technical article. If it was a technical article, I'd be writing in an entirely different way, or I probably wouldn't be writing it because my style is that I am a storyteller. It doesn't matter whether I'm writing a book or an article or doing a podcast, which I also do. Um, I'm a storyteller. So everything I do is in the form of a story. Now, I've written a book on politics that is obviously a nonfiction book, but it's not a textbook. I have written it as if it's a story because that's what I do. By the way, pay no attention to the correction notations that your whatever word processing program you're using is giving you. At this point, it doesn't matter. You're just getting thoughts down. You're trying to get them down in a straight line from point A to point B. And so those don't matter. You can clean those up later. So, anyway, all right. So, we're at the point where, as I was saying, it doesn't matter whether that relationship is a business relationship or a personal relationship, it will be doomed from the start. Now, if somebody's reading this, they want to know why. I already told you why, but my next question as a reader would be why? So let's go after that. Okay. The reason it will be doomed from the start is because it's starting with an unrealistic view of you as a person. Period. Now, at this point, I don't really care whether or not this sounds as if it's correct grammar or not, because this is a first draft. I'm getting my thoughts down. That's what I'm doing. No one, and I will say this until I have no voice. No one can write something perfectly in a first draft. It cannot be done. And if anyone tells you they can do that, they are either lying to you or more than um, more than likely they're just lying to themselves. They think they can. And unlike that little train that tried to go up the hill, they may think they can, but they can't. So, um, it's starting with an unrealistic view of you as a person. Okay. That doesn't mean you can't be the best person that you can be at the moment. Or, well, period. You don't want to be the same way you would be with a childhood buddy that you've known for many years. Period. Although that's the real you, comma, it's not the real you that someone who's meeting you for the first time necessarily wants to see. Period. For some reason, word processors always want to, when I say want to, they always want to say wanna. Don't get that. Maybe it's me. Maybe that's actually what they're hearing. And by the way, I'm not even going to worry about paragraphs at this point. We can break this up into paragraphs later. As I said, at this point, I'm just getting my thoughts down. So, what you want to be at that moment, comma, is you 2.0. Period. You should strive to be just a little bit better. More on your game than you are with that childhood buddy. Period. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. We all have fears in life. It is an integral part of our innate survival instinct. Fear can bring us pleasure, such as the adrenaline rush of a roller coaster. Fear can also paralyze us into inaction. The good news is we can learn to prevent the latter from happening. One of the biggest fears we have as human beings has to do with let's try that again. One of the biggest fears we have as human beings has to do with interpersonal relationships. Fear of rejection can stop our need to interact socially with each other, but it doesn't have to be that way if we learn to change the way we think about first impressions. When we first meet somebody, our initial instinct is to come across the best that we can, the best that we can to the other person. And by the way, I may be stumbling over some of these words because in my brain I'm thinking of a better way to say it, but we're just going through a run through of this for the next couple minutes. That's not a bad idea, but all too often our best is an unrealistic representation of ourselves. Let me start out by asking you a question. What scares you when you first meet someone? For most people, it has to do with the fact that they don't feel as if they look their best. Sometimes people feel they won't come across as intelligent. One of our fears is that we may come across as being socially inept. This is especially true when we're in a social situation outside of our comfort zone. Finally, some people just feel uncomfortable. Let me bring that down a little so I can read it. Some people may just feel uncomfortable when meeting someone new. The reasons may have to do with feelings I previously mentioned, or maybe for some other reason totally out of their control. For instance, there could be a physical attribute that makes them feel uncomfortable because they believe that physical attribute will make someone else feel uncomfortable. I can identify with this, but I can't relate to it. I walk with crutches. Now, I understand that people who have a preconceived idea who or what I am just by seeing me walk. They may not even realize these preconceived ideas are there, but they are. We all have preconceived ideas based on physical attributes. Those attributes may not even be something you see, they can also be something you hear. What we see on television and in the movies, the accentuating of characteristics, if I could only talk today, it would be so much better, in order to move a plot forward, can lead us to believe that a characteristic is true even though it is not. Take someone speaking with a strong southern drawl. That person could have a PhD in nuclear physics, but because of our conditioning from external sources, we immediately consider that person to be of lesser intelligence. And so now we've gone on with the rest of the article, and you see where it's going. By the way, we've already written 867 words. The average article for a website is 1,000. So I just wanted to keep that in mind. Hope that helps out a little. We will get on with this more in the next edition of Writing 101. Until then, be good to yourself, be good to others, and take care.